Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the Getting Over podcast. It's been a little while, not too long, just a little while, and we're back for another premium live event, if that's what we're calling them these days. Yes, that's right, Elimination Chamber is coming to you this weekend, and we are here to cover who won last time's pay-per-view, and we've got all the news, we've got all the previews, and all the predictions for the upcoming Elimination Chamber. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe, and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. And the big one, share the podcast around. If you've got a wrestling fan in your life, send this podcast their way. I think we can all agree it's a fantastic podcast. Everybody should be listening. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast. Getting over.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is that time again. I am starting a podcast. I'm surrounded by wrestling memorabilia. That can only mean it's time for Getting Over on CookieCast. And it's prime WrestleMania season. We steamroll from the Royal Rumble towards Elimination Chamber this coming weekend. And you boys are back. Here we are. We're going to do a little bit of reviewing, well, a little bit of predicting, and a little bit of nonsense in between. You know the drill by now if you've been here before. You'll be pleased to know I'm going to try not to talk to myself for the next however long. And we have brought along CookieCast regulars, Mr. Paul Williams, and the head honcho himself, Mr. Andy Cook. How are we, fellas?
Oh, absolutely delightful.
Recovered from a seemingly very enjoyable Rumble event by most accounts at this stage.
Yes, yeah. Indeed. The Netflix debut of the premium live events was rather successful. Don't remember any sort of hitches or like dragging in the sort of the feed or anything. Personally,
dare I say, it was even smoother than the network, which for the money behind it, I mean, it's done its job on it. Let's be fair. I stayed up to watch it live. No issues with the live stream from my end whatsoever, and watched it again with the family late Sunday, and it played back fine, no issues. So yeah, really good, really impressed. We will start where we always do on this episode with the predictions title, but because the Rumble was such a big event, then we might maybe go through a couple of the results, particularly from the Rumble matches, in a little more detail. So yeah, going into Royal Rumble, we all know who had the title. Mr. Andrew Cook had that predictions title in his grasp once again. But also, as we know, the Rumble throws up all kinds of chances for extra points. So we went in on the Rumble matches for points. We went in for the winners, a couple of surprise entrants apiece, the Iron Person in each match, and the most eliminations in each match. Yeah. There was a maximum of 12 points to play for, and it's safe to say that this absolutely was not our finest hour predictions-wise all round. So, as I said, out of a maximum of 12 points, we fared, well, let's see. Unfortunately, for the defending, Getting Over predictions champion, Andy, you scored 2. Yeah. Don't worry, though.
I won with 2, did you say? That's great. Fantastic. I mean, a win's a win, Stu. That's all I know. A win is a win. If Fast and the Furious has taught me anything, it's a win is a win. So thank you. I will treasure this win.
I think he might have jumped the gun somewhat there. Yeah. So I was about to say, don't worry, though, because there isn't exactly a gap between your predictions and the next predictions, because I only got 3. Just to clarify, by the way, it was Cody and DIY bringing in the points for Mr. Cook, and I didn't even get DIY. I did have Cody, but I also got a couple of the surprise appearances in the Women's Rumble. Now, that leaves Paul, and even though he wasn't present last time, nor this time, may I add, Mr. Matthew Moore battling for top spot. Both of you scored 4 points, but in different ways. Matt had Cody retaining, Jacob Fatu on most eliminations, Jordan Grace to appear in the Women's Rumble, and Charlotte winning it. So Matt actually got a winner of a Rumble match. Paul had DIY and Cody to win, Jordan Grace to show up in the Women's Rumble, and we said his name, and he appeared. Paul believed in Joe Hendry to show up for the Men's Rumble, and he did. So 4 points apiece. Now, regular listeners and viewers will know that we normally do a tiebreak at this point. But as we sort of really need to do that in a live environment, and Matt's not on the podcast this time around, I mean, I'm not going to tell him if you're not going to tell him. So Paul has gone full heel. It feels a bit dirty, but I don't think we really have an option but to crown the new champion. I mean, it's definitely feet on the ropes and everything, but congratulations, Mr. Williams.
Just really quickly, just to complete aside, how do I raise a grievance? Because I'm pretty sure I've lost the title about 8,000 times now to tiebreak questions. So
I do have the answer to this, Andy. What you need to do is you need to go to the nearest mirror in your house and have a look and have a go at that guy.
And have a good long talk with myself about how I should have done better.
Yeah, basically. All I'll say is you can't see, obviously, but before the recording started, I actually did strike Mr. Moore with a carefully placed steel chair, and I managed to slide it out of the way of any of the recording sort of viewing. So I'll never be caught.
We all saw it.
Aside from the fact that that's now recorded and bound to evidence for eternity, Paul, then
nope.
you know,
you're wrong.
I'm assuming
we don't do instant replay here in the WWE.
Paul's logic is that all of the viewers are clearly WWE officials. Is the anyway, right? Let's have a chat about some of the matches. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about the Rumble matches. No disrespect, wasn't really going to cover the tag title match because it was all right. But the Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens ladder match was, for me, one of the most brutal ladder matches that they've put on in recent times, and it's served its purpose perfectly for story-wise. Obviously, we'll get to some of that a little bit later on as well. But you know what I'm going to talk about? That bump. If you've not seen it, was a point where a ladder was set up as a bridge from the ring to the announcer's desk, and Cody and KO were fighting up there, and it got to the point where Cody did the Alabama Slam on KO through the ladder, and it's making these lads twinge just reliving that, from the thought of it. Do you know what? Right, if you watch it back, and when they replayed it time and time again from that side angle, it wasn't even the bump that got me, because he sort of landed and rolled up, and I think to make it look worse, like almost like stacking himself up. The bit that gets me every time is there is the underneath of a rung of the ladder that effectively scrapes round the back onto the top of KO's head as he goes through it, and it just every time. But yeah, that was brutal. I'm assuming that you guys have at least seen that, if not the whole match.
Yeah, it was like you said. It was like it wasn't the sort of the bump itself. It was the kind of the sort of the initial sort of aftermath of the actual sort of folding of the sort of the ladder, like stuff around him because it looked like at one point, obviously, I don't think it was due to the sort of the angle of it, but it looked as if his head was like literally pinned inside the ladder. But I don't think it was. I think it was just the sort of the aesthetic of it, because you could actually see. I'm pretty sure they went up to him like straight away and obviously did the sort of the hand squeeze test and stuff like that. So
It was a really good visual as well to finish the match as well, with Cody then stood on the announce desk holding the title aloft. Sami Zayn sort of stood there between the two of them, looking forlorn, as didn't know what to do in terms of should he help his friend or congratulate Cody, I guess, who's sort of stuck in the middle. And that is really exactly where it needed to be for the story. So that was great. I really enjoyed that. Right, Women's Rumble. Let's get this one out of the way. Well, obviously Matt had Charlotte Flair as the winner. Thoughts?
Well, I clearly don't know shit because the person I had to win it wasn't even in it.
No, but I would suggest that the person you had to win it was probably a safer bet as a surprise entrant, and that didn't even happen. The woman in question is Becky Lynch. Very surprised that she didn't appear. Reports this week of her saying that she's just enjoying things as they are at the moment, and you never know what's going to happen, but she could foresee a time where she doesn't even come back to wrestling. So I would assume we'll see her sometime in the build up to at least SummerSlam minimal, or is she going to be the return on the Raw after Mania, perhaps?
The Ram.
The man for the Ram. That sounds wrong. Exactly. Shouldn't have said that out loud. Anyway, in terms of surprise entrants, and I would suggest this stretches across both matches, we didn't really get too many legend spots this time around. I mean, obviously, we're going to have to loosely for the women's match classify Nikki Bella as somebody that falls into that bracket. Didn't expect to necessarily see her back, seeing as she's already been in Women's Rumbles on numerous occasions, and especially when the NXT roster is currently so heavily stacked. Very happy to see Roxanne Perez and Julia appear from NXT, and obviously they were my two points as well, so that helped me out. But they did what they were supposed to do as well. They had a good showing, used it to kind of extend their own story with Bayley, and kept it ticking over. Jordan Grace was the other surprise entrant that we've managed to pick between us, as in Paul and Matt had that one. I think it was leaked around the time of the last recording that she'd potentially left TNA and signed with WWE. The Rumble was a decent place to stick her in, but she's also now but she's also gone straight into report for duty for NXT, and she's already been appearing on NXT television, and even at their own premium live event, sort of in between time. So yeah, so that was good to see that debut as well. It's escaping me now that I've thought about it. Paul, can you remember who was the longest in the women's match?
So, annoyingly enough, I'm pretty sure it was not my pick of Liv Morgan.
It was Roxanne, wasn't it? Yeah, that was right.
So I think I was on for it, and then obviously the second that Liv got eliminated, I was like, no. So I think Liv was probably on for it, and then obviously Roxanne outlasted her by about 3 or 4 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, that was right. I think was it something ridiculous like Liv? It was
like an hour and 8 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, I think Liv was an hour and 4. That's ringing a bell now. And Roxanne as well, obviously, then used that effectively to conclude the rivalry with Bayley and Julia, and seemingly is moving up to the main roster imminently, as we'll get to, because she's got a spot now in the Elimination Chamber match this coming weekend. Yeah, I'm not overly happy about Charlotte winning. I'd be surprised if anybody is. Don't think she needs it. At this point, is it even the same Charlotte Flair that it ever was? Have they fully replaced her with somebody else at this point? Nobody will ever know. There are plenty more people in that match, way more deserving. Probably one that I didn't think did need it, but for how much effort she's put in over the last year, I would have even been happier to see Liv win it, to be honest. But yeah, not to be. And we've got to not put up with, that's probably a bad way of putting it, because you never really get a bad WrestleMania match out of Charlotte Flair, do you? So yeah, but we've got to go through it again. Yeah. Since the Women's Rumble, she has selected Tiffany Stratton as her champion of choice. So she'll be heading over to SmackDown to stir up a bit of shit, I guess, and take on Tiffy at WrestleMania for the WWE Women's title. Now, the men's match, results-wise for us, this was probably the worst. Nobody had the winner. Paul had Joe Hendry as a surprise entrant. Nobody else. Matt had Jacob Fatu as most eliminations, and I believe that he was tied for most eliminations as well. So that was a close run thing. So I think it was possibly Reigns, I think, that was joined with.
Yeah, I think so.
Other than that, we got absolutely nothing. The winner of the match, in the end, was none other than Jey Uso himself, and got a hell of a reaction. It was a great way. For me, I really enjoyed the finish. Him and Cena were the last two in the ring, looking like Cena's gonna AA him off the ring apron onto the floor to win the match. Little slip off the back into the ring and sort of push off the ring apron to finish the match. It was a really kind of, I know you're not going to get that many proper wrestling moves, as it were, in the Royal Rumble, because it's a bit of a spot fest, but that felt like an actual wrestler's way to win, which was pretty good. Nice that we get a fresh sort of, run at a main event with somebody for coming into WrestleMania. And since his win, he has selected Gunther for the main event at WrestleMania for the World Heavyweight title. Now, obviously, those two have fought before. They've leaned into that very heavily since, in the respect that Gunther's saying he doesn't want the match, doesn't interest him, he's nothing to prove against Jey Uso and all the rest of it. We're obviously everything to gain for Jey Uso, but seemingly then everything to lose for Gunther, but he's kind of not really gone down that route yet. In terms of Iron Man for this one, this is debatable. Now, officially, the records will state that Penta was the Iron Man of the men's Royal Rumble match. Now, we mentioned, and again, apologies WWE officials if you are indeed watching along. It's a shame you don't have instant replay, because every single person watching the Royal Rumble had replay and could see that very, very early on into the match, both feet did touch the floor. I'm guessing you guys have seen that as well.
Oh, yes.
In fact, I'm pretty sure at the time you were up as well, weren't you, Mr. Williams? And we were texting along going, yeah, I remember this. So they absolutely dodged a bullet by, you'd think, showing it live at the time and then never replaying it again. No, they absolutely replayed it again and were like, look, it was only 1 foot. No, it was definitely two. Definitely two. But nonetheless, went on to have a reasonable showing. I think I mentioned this last time out. I'm still not 100% sold on Penta yet. I'm sure Matt would have something to say about this as well, to be honest. They're painting him as if he is like the next golden ticket. The first good match I've seen, or what our classes, me personally, a match that I've thoroughly enjoyed, was the triple threat match from Raw this week with him versus Ludwig Kaiser and Pete Dunne. There was a really cool spot in that match where Pete Dunne was sort of bent over in the middle of the ring, and Penta used him as a springboard. Or was it the way around? Whichever. But Penta did a springboard into like a Mexican destroyer off the back of somebody else, which looked ace. That's the kind of promise that we've had of him as coming in as a luchador. Probably the first match I've seen where he hasn't absolutely fucked something up in the middle of it so far, Royal Rumble included, and this is why I'm not sold. So maybe he's growing into it a little bit. Hopefully, we shall see. But yeah, anything else on the Royal Rumble that you lads wanted to bring up that you've seen? I'm assuming I didn't know if Andy might want to mention one of his favorite streamers getting absolutely creamed.
I was going to mention the almighty spear.
So that was a YouTuber called iShowSpeed. I'm showing my age because I didn't know who the hell he was, but yet my children definitely did. There was an injury to Akira Tozawa, who didn't make the Rumble. Triple H called around in the back office where absolutely nobody responded, and the best they had was to throw in a YouTuber who magically seemed to have a WWE T-shirt of his own already made and on his back, and he was ran all the way down to the ring as somebody called IShow Speed would be expected to do, surely. Stood there for a little bit, took in a little bit of the crowd, didn't notice Bron Breakker bouncing off one set of ropes into the other set of ropes, and then basically spearing the soul out of this guy as he crushed him.
He sent him to the shadow dimension. it was fantastic.
Not content with half killing the guy, picked him up above his head and threw him out of the ring. This guy has been getting plaudits ever since for the injuries sustained at the Royal Rumble. Although seemingly nobody mentioned his ribs, it was the massive flap of skin that was hanging off his leg, and I'm still yet to work out where that happened. Part of me is wondering if it was probably on the way back as he's limping to the back. But yeah, not great. Fun spot. Waste of an entry for me. I'll always be that guy. Give it to an NXT guy that could show himself off a little bit better. No, nobody needed to see that. Although it was quite nice that at least a YouTuber got the end that many of us probably feel that they deserved. So yeah. Anyway, we'll put the Rumble to bed. There is a little bit of news this time around, and then we'll get to the predictions very, very shortly. Unfortunately for some within the WWE, it's been release season. You guys seen the list of names that's come out? So yeah. February has rolled around, and so did the axe in the WWE locker room. Since the last podcast we did, we've had a steady stream of releases across all the brands. So the list I have is as follows: Duke Hudson, Paul Ellering, Akam Rezar, Cedric Alexander, Sonya Deville, Blair Davenport, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, Isla Dawn, Giovanni Vinci, Elektra Lopez, and Carmella. Now, Carmella and Sonya Deville, as far as I'm aware, their contracts expired rather than been let go. So that kind of is a different thing in and of itself. The rest of them, however, were given the old handshake and wish their best the best of luck in their future endeavours. It seems to me that Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows are the perennial. Oh, they're doing all right elsewhere. Let's have them back for a bit. Oh, now we don't know what to do with them. Oh, lads, you're gonna have to go again. Sorry. And I think this is that the end of their now third run in WWE?
Well, you might even have like an extra one in there for Gallows because obviously he was there under a different gimmick at least twice.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
The one, I mean, there's no on that list that there isn't one huge standout name, I would suggest. There are two probably that I'm most disappointed about. Isla Dawn is one because I think she's great and was in a decent tag team with Alba Fire. Again, seemingly ran out of room in a women's division where they've now just introduced mid-card titles as she's gone. Strange one for me. And no surprise as an avid NXT watcher, Duke Hudson, great in Chase U. Big upside to him, I feel, for his size and his athleticism. But why is it that the Aussies never, apart from Rhea Ripley, because she's the obvious exception, but why is it the Aussies never really seem to get over?
Language barrier.
Well, it's maybe running out of shrimp and Barbies in the States. Who knows? Let's go down that route. So yeah, huge list of talent gone. But I wouldn't be surprised if at least 3 or 4 of them make reappearances, whether that be in WWE or indeed with Uncle Tony down the road at some point very, very soon. We've had the announcement of WrestleMania 42's location, despite the fact we're not even at WrestleMania 41 yet. New Orleans has been announced as the host city for next year's WrestleMania even. Goddamn SmackDown. The Rock announced a last-minute change to appear on SmackDown last week to drop the news, whilst WWE were already in the Big Easy. Obviously, New Orleans has played host to WrestleMania twice before, both for WrestleMania 30 and 34. It's just a good excuse to remind regular people that me and Paul went to number 30, and it was it. I very much enjoyed New Orleans as a host city, and would thoroughly recommend it if you do get a chance to go. Very, very last little point on the news, then we will take a small break before the predictions, was that Macho Man Randy Savage's ring gear, or some of it, has been sold at auction in the past week. The sale of the different items raised $197,000. The biggest hitter was gear that was worn by Savage at WCW's Bash at the Beach in 1995, but then subsequently used for the Slim Jim commercials, of which he's now probably just as famous. That set on its own, and no, it's not in my collection, on its way to this very room that I'm sitting in.
Lies.
It was $45,000 just for that one set of gear. The other big hitter that I picked out of the list was his Royal Rumble 1991 ring-worn gear. If you've seen Macho Man, if it doesn't include the jacket, it is just going to be pants. Somebody effectively bought those for $20,000. And whilst that sinks in, we are just going to take a very, very small break, and we will be right back to you with the Elimination Chamber predictions for this weekend. Oh, he's not. Never mind. And if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. Anyway, we are here for the Elimination Chamber predictions, which comes to us live this Saturday from the Rogers Centre in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. This building formerly played host to WrestleMania 18 for Rock versus Hogan. So it's not the arena across the street. It's the big one. It's the huge stadium show. So that's, now let me get this right. An NFL stadium for the Rumble, an MLB stadium for Elimination Chamber, then back to the NFL for Mania. I'm assuming is it must be it. Is it really?
Why can't I think? Oh, it was Lucas Oil, wasn't it? Yeah, it was Indianapolis. That was it. I was going to say, why can't I remember where the Royal Rumble was? I was like,
Is it because you've blanked out Pat McAfee being an insufferable prick on the opening video for? Well, I like Pat McAfee, but there is too much of a good thing.
No, because I was technically behind on the feed and realised it just as I finished watching Stephanie McMahon's little entrance thing, and then I basically skipped it forward and managed to just completely miss all of that sort of spiel. Pretty much. So, well, yeah, I'll take that.
There we have it, folks. Follow along for more tips when there's people talking on the wrestling that you don't want to listen to. So yeah, it is in the, and it's a big old stadium. So it's intriguing me. I mean, I know that they've done it obviously in Australia in a huge stadium as well, but it's intriguing me how they get the Elimination Chamber bit to work. Is it a structure that they're going to have to then build to hold this huge cage? I assume so, but I guess we'll find out this week. At the time of recording, again, we don't have the standard Triple H5. We are down to 4 matches on the card, one of which is technically unsanctioned. So is that only 3? I mean, but as always, the information I've got has been taken from WWE.com, and the card is subject to change. But aside from the matches, we also have a planned visit from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to see if Cody will respond to his request to become his champion. The Rock, as we mentioned, dropped by SmackDown to announce the WrestleMania 42 location, but he also dropped by to have a little chat with the current WWE Undisputed Champion, Cody Rhodes, to talk about how much they've become friends since last year's WrestleMania, mentioning that their mums have even hung out together since. Oh. Dwayne then completely dropped a bombshell that he wants Cody to be his champion and to give him his soul. What?
Yeah, weird. It was strange. It was strange because obviously I'm assuming you've watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
I felt it was strange that obviously The Rock came out to do the sort of the announcement that New Orleans was getting WrestleMania back. And at first I was like, seems an odd sort of thing to do. And then I was like, oh, that's because it's in New Orleans for Raw, so it made a lot of sense. Um, and then when I was watching it, I noticed that he did a couple of things that were a bit sort of like heely in his delivery. Like I think he said something about the crowd being like either ugly or smelly or a bit of both or something like that. I was like, but you're trying to get these people on side by telling them they're getting WrestleMania back. Oh, it's a bit. I understand now. And then obviously he launched into the sort of the whole thing with Cody and the sort of like that was more like of the layover from the Raw after Mania last year. I think where they had the bit where it was did he give him something?
Yeah.
He put something in his hand that he'd said he'd taken from the night before, and obviously he did the sort of the bit with the sort of the belt. He was like, "Can I hold yours if you can hold mine?" or something like that. And it was all a bit, where are we going with this? Yeah, odd, very strange.
The best thing for me that's come out of it has been the meme. Please tell me you've seen this, because it's a picture of the Rock and Cody together with a speech bubble from the Rock that says, "Give me your soul," and the speech bubble from Cody that says, "But where will I keep my adrenaline?" It's perfect, absolutely perfect. Yeah, it's not even a moving one. It was just somebody's thought, ha ha ha, straight away, perfect. There's also been what has apparently been leaked footage of Cody giving the Rock his soul. But it turns out it was just some rehashed gameplay from WWE 2K24 with the Rock using the supernatural trait that you can earn during the season mode to lift him up off his feet without actually touching him. It's a bit odd. It seems to be going along the lines of corporate Rock. It does open up a few possibilities storyline wise, which we'll get to, because I can't really talk about much more than that until we get to possibly the men's elimination chamber match. So with that, we'll dive into the 4/3 actual matches, and we might as well start with the unofficial unsanctioned match, which is Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens. So going into the Rumble, Kevin Owens repeatedly mentioned Sami helping him win the title from Cody, and in return, KO would help Sami win the Rumble itself. Well, the first didn't happen, but as we mentioned, Sami was ringside to see Kevin Owens take that most brutal of Alabama slams through the ladder, which effectively ended the match. On the Raw following, so just 2 days after, Zayn lost to CM Punk in an Elimination Chamber qualifying match, but was then brutally attacked by Kevin Owens in the moments following. And he used a move which is effectively banned in WWE, or up until this point, the package pile driver. Sami Zayn did take a couple of weeks off to recover, but still apparently isn't 100%. And as such, when he demanded a match against Kevin Owens, Raw GM Adam Pearce would not make it official. Hence the unsanctioned match for this weekend. Anything goes. It's effectively a street fight. But whose win here will never officially hit the record books. I don't actually have any predictions from Mr. Moore as it stands. So if he gets them to me before the weekend's festivities, I will obviously enter them into the book. But for now, gentlemen, it is just the three of us. So, Andy, do you want to take the first prediction?
Is that just so I can be clear? Is there a way that neither of them win? Is there a way that they drag this out past this match?
I think there is a possibility that it ends as a no contest, and or you have sort of like a scenario where it sort of almost goes down as like a double count out of sorts, but without the official sort of like count out stipulation, if that makes sense.
Sounds a bit like a Paul Williams special to me, and I don't like to step on any toes, so I might avoid the double DQ.
Well, I mean, technically there can be no DQ, but the match could finish. Well, they said they talked a lot in the promos about how if Kevin Owens wants to beat up Sami Zayn on the concourse, Adam Pearce can't stop it. If he wants to beat him up in the stands, Adam Pearce can't stop it. And Sami Zayn flipped it around and said, yeah, but if I beat up Kevin Owens in the concourse and I beat up Kevin Owens in the stands, you can't stop that either. The problem is they've hit this patch of vague where it's unsanctioned. Most unsanctioned matches that I've seen in the past still have to finish in the ring because it's not been officially declared as a no, falls count anywhere business or anything like that. So I think it will finish in the ring, but I think it's got potential to certainly do the rounds throughout the stadium.
I imagine it's going to start outside the ring. It's going to go round. It's probably going to go through the crowd. It's going to go, all over the shop because it's allowed to. Because it needs a finish, put me down for Sami.
Okay.
Because it just feels like it makes a little bit more sense in some ways. I do wonder whether this will just be the start of something. I do wonder whether WrestleMania looms and they might, it might be an easy win to get a match in. I was going to try to not mention the fact that there's only 4 matches for this premium live event, but so yeah, Sami.
Okay. Are you down for Sami? Paul?
I absolutely hate these matches. So the term unsanctioned match is the biggest pile of bollocks that they sort of do. So they had it back in 2002 when Shawn Michaels came back when he had that match with Triple H. They've had a few sort of dotted around throughout the years as that, and it's hard to get into the sort of the danger of it because these are such combustible elements that we just can't possibly allow this match to go ahead. Don't book it then. Don't put it on the pay-per-view. If your storyline so concerned that they're going to do such heinous things to each other, just put them on different brands and don't let them have the match. It's just call it what it is. Just call it a no holds barred match. Don't call it an unsanctioned match. It's just nonsense. I'm intrigued for it because I'm not sure if you're aware, but this is actually the first recorded match that these two have had against each other. They've never actually faced each other in any shape or form. Oh no, wait, they've probably had about 8,000 matches against each other up to this point. Like Andy said, I'm kind of amazed with this one because this one had when he sort of did the attack on Sami after the match he had with Punk on Raw a couple of weeks ago. I was convinced this had Zayn will be out until a week before Mania, 2 weeks before Mania, come back, set up the Mania match. But obviously I'd forgotten that Elimination Chamber was in Toronto, and they're obviously not going to pass up the opportunity to have the 2 Canadian boys go back to Canada to have a match that, again, has never happened before in front of their home fans.
Do you know what got me with that though? I don't know if did you see the promos that they were doing from their cars? And I think it was Kevin Owens that said, we're going to have to take this back to where it all started, Toronto. And I think everybody at that point in time that watches wrestling that lives in Montreal went, what?
Yeah. So I think Andy's onto something in the fact that I wouldn't be surprised if we get a no contest out of this one and it sort of holds it over to Mania. It would probably make more sense for Sami to win for the storyline, but to drag it out more, I think it makes more sense for, if anyone's going to get the win, Owens to get the win by like a sort of a sneaky like roll up, or he's kind of sort of like low blow behind the ref's back, something like that. Gets a shit house win, if you will, to then sort of have like a loser leaves whatever at WrestleMania, and that's how you sort of finish the story. But I know I've said finish the story. Obviously, that's a trademark for old Cody in here. So, yeah, stick me down for an Owens win.
Okay.
But again, I wouldn't be surprised if they. I'm thinking this one ends when they both take like a header off some sort of like 30-foot thing through a load of stuff on the floor, and they both can't back up and stuff like that.
And bear in mind as well that this is Kevin Owens, the guy that famously, very much like Shane McMahon, seen the set at WrestleMania when it was COVID WrestleMania and was like, "Can I jump off that?" Like straight away. So
and as well, he's taken to sort of taking that bump like Homer does when he goes backwards over the fire hydrant and does the "this is even more painful than it looks" bump and stuff like that. So I'm fully expecting to see one of those in this match as well.
So what you're saying is that's going to happen. He's then going to get wheeled into the ambulance, and then the stretcher's going to come out of the ambulance and back down the hill again.
Big time.
Okay. Right. I have also gone for Kevin Owens, and I think that it was a 50-50 one for me, because I agree with a lot of what Andy was saying. To me, it makes sense for Sami Zayn to win, so that Kevin Owens goes into absolute full raging heel mode to get like basically back at Sami. The only thing is, now that this is listed as unsanctioned, I think they're going to, and they're competing effectively for moments on the card against 2 Elimination Chamber matches. I think this is going to be absolutely brutal. I can see it, and obviously they're 2 best friends going at it. They're going to trust each other to do some absolutely wacky and wonderful, brutal shit, I think. But I think Paul then almost took what I was going to say, in the sense of Sami will make a miraculous recovery just in time for WrestleMania, whereby they then have the blow off. And again, took the words out of my mouth with the whole, it's definitely got to end in a loser leaves match for them to be split up, because surely after all of this, they can't coexist on the same brand ever again.
Yeah, but they've already done this, like, what, 10 times over, where they have a series of like sort of competitions. So they had it in NXT, they both came up, they had it again, and then they sort of like, it goes like, they must only go a maximum of 2 years, 3 years tops, maybe, where they don't have some sort of interaction with each other against one another.
They're the tag team equivalent of the Big Show, is what you're saying.
Oh, I've just thought of something they could do. So they could do the loser leaves. Zayn loses, and it's an excuse to get El Generico into the company.
You imagine. If he's short of a few quid, they'll sell some bloody masks, I'll tell you.
Oh.
I mean, Penta will tell you that. I think he'd probably broken some sort of masks. I think his mask was higher selling than Rey Mysterio's mask before he'd even had a match in terms of like year to date or whatever. There were some stats about that. Anyway,
if I was in the market for a mask, it's the one I'd go for. It's cooler than Mysterio's, so.
Yeah, but you also then have to stick your tongue out the entire time you're wearing it and keep shouting the 2 same words rather than actually be able to hold a conversation. Anyway, I mean, I don't know how the rest of you feel, but for listeners to the podcast, if Paul's next appearance was just him in a mask shouting "Zero Miedo" down the thing the whole time, not sure that's going to go down so well. Anyway, we shall move along. The next match I have on the card is Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus versus Nia Jax and Candice LeRae. Hey, WWE in Toronto, should do something really special. Like a first time ever. Nope. Ridiculous giveaway to the fans in attendance? Nope. Creative team, any ideas? Bring back Trish, you say? Again? Go on then.
Hang on a second. Bring back retired Trish. Because, she had that retirement match against Charlotte at SummerSlam a couple of years ago. Oh, no, sorry, this is the wrestling business I
At this point in time, Ric Flair holds the the titles for the most world titles and the most times coming back from retirement.
No. Doesn't even come close to the amount of time that Terry Funk retired and came back.
Okay, well, maybe this is it. Maybe Trish, she's sick of Charlotte being referred to as her father's daughter in the terms of the amount of world titles that she's had, so she'll take the other one from. Anyway, yeah, Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton have been at war since Tiffy cashed in her Money in the Bank to win the title from Nia a little while back. This match, though, does feel like a very odd booking, seeing as Charlotte has selected Tiffy as her WrestleMania opponent, but isn't involved in the match listing. Great that Candice LeRae gets a match on the Premium Live event. Happy for her. I don't really see the point of this one. I feel if I go into it much more, I'm going to potentially step on some toes. So all I'll finish with is who's going to win the match, and are we running a sweepstake on the minute that Charlotte decides to get involved? Paul, do you want to kick us off with a prediction for this?
I mean, to say I have little interest in this would be massively underselling it. All I can see is Trish gets the win by pinning Candice LeRae. Is it like the only thing I can think is that Candice is in this match to eat the pin? Surely. But that's just my thoughts personally. But yeah, just a really strange one. Like, yeah, you've got the women. So you've got the women's. I always get confused with this. So it's the women's WWE champion.
Yeah.
Not the women's world champion, because that's on Raw.
Yeah.
So you've got the women's world champion. No, I've already fucked up. You've got the women's WWE champion. Fucking hell sake. So you've got the women's champion. Her competitor that we already know for WrestleMania is not in the match. The person she beat for the title, and they clearly don't want to go back to that, is in the match. But to sort of keep them separate, we'll give them each a tag partner, so it's not a direct rematch. Yeah.
Can we
You've already lost my interest, to be honest with you.
Can we just add into the fact that you've also mentioned that the tag team partner of the current women's champion is the person that the Royal Rumble winner retired at SummerSlam back when. So there's beef there as well. I have no idea what they're going to do with this one. I would agree that Candice is in for said pinfall, if that's the case. That means that Nia Jax doesn't win, so therefore she doesn't get included in the title picture conversation whatsoever, which is fine for me. But what if they do something weird and somehow get Trish into the title match?
Interesting.
I can see it happening, but I don't know why they need to. So effectively, I'm going to go with a really boring. Tiffany and Trish will win, and the Charlotte stuff will happen after the match as opposed to during. So that's the most logical for me. So that's where I'm sticking. Andy.
Yeah. Trish and Tiffy time for me, please.
Same stuff or any other thoughts?
I've desperately tried not to be too negative about this pay-per-view, as it will always be in my house. As I'm sure you can tell, because I've mentioned it 9 times already. But tell me you were struggling for matches without telling me you were struggling for matches. I mean, So yeah, I don't see the point. I don't see the reason, and I think it's just, for want of a better way of putting it, filler. We kind of all know the outcome before it's even happened. So can we just skip it and say that we had it? It kind of feels a little bit like that.
I don't understand why they've been building so many undercard feuds at the moment. They've got, like I said earlier, they've got the Women's United States Championship, the Women's Intercontinental Championship, the Men's Intercontinental Championship US title. 4 titles that are sat doing nothing really on a premium live event weekend, and this is what they come up with. Like the aforementioned Pete Dunne Penta Ludwig Kaiser match would have been perfect because they've been building that as a feud, and it was great on Raw.
Here's an idea. You know all that talent that they cut? Get them all together, stick them in the ring, put a contract in the middle. Just saying.
Watch how many of them walk out flipping the bird at Triple H the fastest. Oh well, okay.
By the way, I think it's prudent that we should say watch this space, and obviously when that happens, Mr. Andrew Cook needs to be sending an invoice to the company for that, fee that he's clearly due.
It's all right because then, Andy, when they then contact you with a job offer for the creative team, you too can come up with such groundbreaking tactics as booking a wrestler from their hometown to appear in said hometown.
I imagine I would last about a day on the WWE creative. So I'm like, right, I've got some amazing ideas there, but like, whoa, slow down there. So that's not what we're about here. This is very much, we're playing the long game here. So you just pipe down and keep your ideas to yourself. I'm like, I'm going to go.
Oh, right. We shall move on. Well, there are 2 matches left, and we're going to start this one, the Women's Elimination Chamber match. So the winner of this match will face Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas, and your competitors are Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, Bayley, Naomi, Roxanne Perez, and that's your full field. So yeah, Charlotte, as I mentioned, has chosen women's champion Tiffy as her Mania opponent. So this weekend we find out who's going to face the women's world champion, just so Paul can get that right. We'll find out this weekend when one woman survives the Elimination Chamber, and all of the participants I mentioned had to qualify for this one. Liv Morgan beat Io Sky, albeit after DQ involvement from Rhea herself. Bliss and Belair defeated Candice LeRae and Piper Niven respectively. This is where my gripe might have come from, because both of the new women's mid-card champions were beaten as Bayley bested Lyra Valkyria and Naomi defeated Chelsea Green. The final spot was taken by Roxanne Perez when Bianca and Naomi came to interfere in her match with Raquel Rodriguez. There's already a lot of interwoven stories here. They were obviously going to look at getting Raquel into the match to help Liv. Liv and Raquel have since become women's world tag team champions on Raw this past week after they defeated Naomi and Bianca Belair, both of which are in the chamber match. Roxanne Perez has got the whole new upstart debutant kind of vibe going, and Liv Morgan, like I say, has been ripping it up for the last year. Alexa Bliss returning after such a long time out, and really this will, I think, only be her second match because there was the Rumble, a lot of vignettes, then this. That is a big ask for somebody who she must have been training like an absolute mother in the background.
She had to, did she not? Well, she didn't just get put in the match, did she? She must have had to win a qualifier.
Sorry, yes, I did say that actually, didn't I? So it'll be our third match. Yeah. So Bliss defeated Candice LeRae. So yeah, third match. Even so, third match back to be a chamber match. I would suggest that she is probably going to be entered 5th or 6th into this environment just to see how we go. But yeah, like I say, a lot of interwoven stories already. But the question is going to be whose next chapter involves a date at the big dance with Rhea Ripley. I'll take this one. in the order that we've gone. And who's going to be? It's a coin toss for me between a couple. I would suggest that Bianca and Naomi are going to be either against each other or involved in some tag team shenanigans. So I don't think it's going to be them. I wouldn't mind it being Bayley because she's been officially moved to the Raw roster. So therefore the title still stays there. There's no shenanigans like that. Obviously Liv probably taken up in that title picture, the tag title picture. So that leaves Roxanne, Bayley, and Bliss. Would they give it to Bliss this soon? Not sure. I don't think they give it to Roxanne immediately. And then it's like process of elimination like that for me. So I'm stuck on Bayley. So that's me. Bayley prediction. And it's not even Paul that made it just yet. So yeah. Andy?
I have Alexa Bliss.
Ooh.
I think it is a good way to get that sort of momentum going, get back at it, sort of thing. So, yeah.
There was a lot of talk about what's she going to do with the Wyatt Six when she returned, and so far nothing. Albeit in the one of the promos that she had, it was there was like glitches again. So I assume that they'll use her to kickstart that somewhere. Paul?
I'm surprised that no one's gone with my pick actually on this one, as it kind of follows the pattern they usually seem to have in that the final two of the Royal Rumble tend to split off into the relevant sort of championship matches. Obviously, you've had it with Batista and Cena in the past. You've had it with like Reigns and insert name here in the past. So I think it will be Roxanne Perez. I think that obviously Triple H knows what she can do. I know he's not running NXT at the moment, but obviously he'll have been. I imagine it'll have been him that'll have signed her potentially.
Well, she came from Booker T's training school, so they knew what they were getting.
So, and I think it's very much into that sort of like realm of, well, even though we've got these mid card titles, we still need to build, the next set of stars who can sort of like carry the company for the next like 10, 15 years. And obviously she fits that mold because she's 21, 22, something like that.
Yeah.
She's obviously proved that she can carry the title in NXT because she was the main champion on 2 occasions.
Yeah.
And from what I've seen, she's a very, very good in-ring competitor. Plus, I think you'd get the interesting dynamic of you'd like to think that she looks like she wouldn't stand a chance against Rhea because she's about half her size and nowhere near as strong and stuff like that. But you can always play up the sort of the plucky underdog story and whatnot. And I think it's probably it's tricky to do that if she's a heel. But I think you can get a long storyline out of this with them two, and it's not just like a sort of a one and done shot. I think you can sort of like spread this over like 3 or 4 matches to take you all the way through to like say SummerSlam and stuff like that. So Perez for me.
Okay. Right. So that's going to leave us with the prediction for what I think will be the main event in the men's Elimination Chamber match to go. So just to take in the gravity of that whole situation, who is going to fight Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania by winning the men's Elimination Chamber match? We're just going to take a very, very quick break. You won't even notice it. If you try and recharge your glass, we'll already be back. So, see you there. 2 seconds. See, we're back. You didn't even have time to get that drink, did you? And now you're thirsty. Now you're going to be thinking about it. Why don't you just do it whilst you listen to us carry on? We've got it. So, the main event for this weekend's premium live event, or as I have it, it certainly will be, the men's Elimination Chamber match. Same rules as the women's. 2 people start, 4 people in the pods released at intervals throughout. Last person standing will face Cody Rhodes this time as champion at WrestleMania 41. Your competitors are John Cena, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, Logan Paul, and Damian Priest. So, similar setup, except for, unlike the women, not all of the men had to qualify. John Cena declared himself for the match in the post-Rumble press conference, saying that he felt, after his loyalty and service, that he deserved it. Nobody's questioned that. It's his farewell tour. Don't forget, everyone, it's his last ever Elimination Chamber. And it's going to be his last ever everything from now until the end of the year. For those of you keeping score on the old merchandise at this point, every city he stops in, he gets a new set of t-shirts and a new replica title belt in the colours of the main sports team, seemingly from that town. This time getting the Toronto's Blue Jays treatment. Anyway, a very, very expensive habit to keep if you are collecting those belts. This time around, the rest of the field, apart from John Cena, did qualify. CM Punk defeated Sami Zayn, as we talked about. Drew McIntyre defeated LA Knight and Jimmy Uso in a triple threat match on SmackDown. Logan Paul defeated WWE Hall of Famer Rey Mysterio to enter his second chamber match. Damian Priest had to beat Jacob Fatu and Braun Strowman to earn his place in another SmackDown triple threat. And Seth Rollins completes the field after victory over Finn Balor. So what I'm taking from this is, if you're on SmackDown, you've got to work that bit harder, because the Raw guys only had to beat one person, whereas both of the SmackDown people had to beat 2 at once. There's no denying, though, that the field for this match is absolutely stacked, possibly with the exception of Logan Paul. But we're going to find out effectively who is going to main event WrestleMania. I do feel bad for Jay in saying that, but to borrow a phrase from a good friend, Mr. Williams, there is absolutely no way that Gunther versus Jay headlines.
What you mean, opening match of WrestleMania, Jey Uso replacing the main event moniker that he's so rightfully put on himself?
Just can't see. Can you see it at this point?
Not a fucking chance, mate. The only chance it have, the only chance it have is if it main events night 1, and that isn't happening. So,
don't get me wrong. The crowd reactions he's getting in the States are insane, and the merch sales, everything through the roof. So that all points in the right direction for him. My concern is it all goes a bit Daniel Bryan in the respect of all the crowd support in the world behind him, gets the big win, and then injured and forgotten about, basically, is kind of the way that I don't want it to happen. I want him to carry on this trajectory, but he's going to have to freshen it up at some point. Anyway, that's another story for another time. So, like I said, this time around, we've got Cena, Punk, McIntyre, Rollins, Paul, and Priest, and it's going to be our job to pick a winner. Now, I'll let him have the first prediction for the first match, because I'm conscious that last podcast we just trod all over everything Andy was going to say. So it seems to be right that I'm going to give Andy the lead in the prediction of the final match, because if he's got any kind of storylines, any kind of conspiracies of where it's all going to go, now is your chance, Mr. Cook.
I feel like you've built this up a little too much for me personally, because mine was just going to be very simple. Earlier today, I nearly had to break out a coin because I had 2 names and I could not decide. And then I remembered something you have already mentioned, and I went, I think that's going to do it for me. So on one side of the coin was the name CM Punk. And I was like, yeah, I think that probably sort of fits. It's kind of the way things are, and that, big draw, etc., etc., etc. On the other side of that coin was somebody that you cannot see. And I remembered that he is on his farewell tour, and last Elimination Chamber, last WrestleMania, last. And I went, oh, it's obviously going to be John Cena, isn't it? Because it's it's the last time they're going to be able to get these things out of him. So why not use him? Why not have that? There's that. If you look at like previous Cody matches, for whatever you want to say about the Dwayne, the final boss thing kind of fits quite well in that comparison between him and Cody, in the sense that there's quite a difference between them. Whereas I feel like John Cena stepping into the ring with Cody opposite, it kind of feels looks wise like a So purely because it's his farewell tour, I was like, John Cena for me, please.
Okay. Well, I'd already written Punk in the book, by the way that you started that, so I will take that out and change it. Invisible ink. Right. So, Paul?
Yeah. I thought it was a pretty open and shut with this one. And I've seen stuff on the socials that's now sort of made it a bit cloudy, and potentially opens up the option for there to be like an argument to be made for 2, if not 3, of the contestants to like sort of have a logical path to being the right person to get the win. I'm going to go for CM Punk because I think it's the one that makes the most sense from a WrestleMania main event sort of perspective. I don't think it'll be Cena, mainly for the fact that I think they're trying to tell the story of, oh, it's his last year, it's his last chance to do this. Has he ever really been the underdog? No. So if he's going to try and get the record-breaking 17th world title, is it going to be a case of he's going to literally go all the way to, say, Survivor Series, having not won the chance to get into a title match, and then like he's going to have to do it at the Survivor Series because that's his last chance that he's going to have, and stuff like that. So that's the only reason why I don't think it'll be Cena. I'd love it if it was McIntyre, but it doesn't seem as if that's the way they want to go with it. So for me, the logical thing is CM Punk. I've seen a couple of things where people have said that as like, you do it as Cena, you have the match sort of earlier, so this wouldn't be the main event. The main event would be the segment between The Rock and Cody. Sort of have the sort of, is he going to be The Rock's hand-picked champion, blah blah blah, and then Cena wins the match. Cody says no. It all goes like the lights go down, the lights come back up, and you've got Cena there, who gives him the sort of the AA after he's won the chamber, and it's like, ooh, Cena's going to be The Rock's hand-picked champion. You get the last sort of 10 months of him as a heel. That's obviously never going to happen because the merch just doesn't sell if he's a heel. But I think there is an argument that he could do that storyline with CM Punk in that role as the heel.
Yeah.
So I think it makes sense for me. If they were going to go down that route, that would make sense for me to have Punk work as a heel, because arguably he works better as a bad guy anyway. So
I have agreed with Paul on that. I have also picked CM Punk. I differ slightly on the Cena thing. Not the fact that he wouldn't do the heel stuff. He absolutely. People have loved to fantasize about the fact that John Cena's going to go heel sometime. He's going to be heel. He's going to be heel. That guy is the perennial babyface. He doesn't need to be a heel. And as we've mentioned earlier on, the t-shirts and the belts, as Paul mentioned, they're not going to sell them in all the different weird and wonderful colours and sports teams and stuff that they can come up with from now until the end of the year. Plus, as we keep going on about this last time ever, this is the bit where it varies, because I think that Cena's time comes in the Money in the Bank match, because he, I believe, was possibly the first person to name the date, not do a surprise cash in, and then he lost. So I think he's got a bit of a redemption on that one. And I would be very surprised if it wasn't then him taking the title at SummerSlam. I think he'll do it. At this point in time, I'm optimistic enough to think that they'll give him they'll let Flair and his record go and give it to Cena. The later it gets into the year, perhaps, if it hasn't happened, I'll probably think that that's not going to happen. But for now, I can see Cena winning Money in the Bank, him cashing in and getting the title at SummerSlam, and then him losing it at Survivor Series and basically doing what Bret Hart should have done when the time comes around. So that's kind of my theory. In terms of everybody who's left, Paul's right. I think Drew McIntyre doesn't make a lot of sense, but he'll put on a hell of a match. Rollins is clearly going to end up in some sort of Roman Reigns issue after the Royal Rumble, seeing as that he stamped his head into the floor and into the steps post the elimination there. Logan Paul, I mean, the less said about him, the better. So we'll leave that there. Damian Priest had a decent year. Feels like he's in it a bit to make up the numbers. Can't see him being a big enough pull for a match against Cody at WrestleMania for me, which leaves Punk. But I think the way that they'll get there, seeing as the cashing in of the Paul Heyman favour hasn't yet happened, there could be some Roman Reigns shenanigans, and this might be the favour. And then I think the final two will be Rollins and Punk, and there'll be something where Reigns costs Rollins the match in revenge, and that's also the favour for CM Punk as well. So, different way to get there, but same answer. Between the four of us, we don't have a matching set of predictions, which is good. However, the only one different one that we have, Paul, between me and you, is the winner of the Women's Chamber. So if neither Roxanne or Bayley win, we may need some tie breaks next time around. Or let's not worry about that when Andy just clearly gets 4 out of 4 and wipes the floor with both of us. So yeah, so that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. We've gone through all of the stuff from the Rumble and all of the stuff that is to come from this weekend's Elimination Chamber. Have you gentlemen got anything else you wanted to bring up? Oh, hand goes up from Mr. Cook. Have at it, sir.
Weirdly, I do have something. I have any other business. I love a good podcast. That may surprise some people. And one of my favorite podcasts is a podcast that two of my favorite comedians host together called Two Bears, One Cave. And they had a guest a little while ago, and that guest was one Cody Rhodes. And they had Cody on, and he was a very good guest, and they had a great time. Obviously, anybody that doesn't know, Bert and Cody sort of worked, well, they didn't sort of, they worked together on a show separately. But the bit I enjoyed the most about it was the fact that they asked Cody about his neck tattoo. And I imagine you guys already know the story around the neck tattoo, but his telling of the story for the neck tattoo was absolutely fantastic and made me proper laugh whilst walking in the street, whilst walking the dog. So if anybody wants to check that out, it was most entertaining. Yeah. I was going to mention, another one was I was going to mention that they're starting to release the entrance videos for the latest WWE or 2K. I can never remember the way they do it.
25 is next.
Yeah.
Isn't
Some of the entrance videos
No.
are
20. Is it 25?
I think it's 25. I think it's
Yeah.
25. Some of the entrance videos have been epic so far. Like watching, just like the way they're done and like the way they're shot. I was like, if the entrance videos are anything to go off, it's going to be a good one. So yeah.
I'm going to throw one more thing in, and this is a further future prediction. I might be putting 2 and 2 together here and getting 5. However, just on the note, it's just jogged my memory from the John Cena last time tour thing that we were talking about. On the road to WrestleMania, John Cena is going to appear at his last Raw in Scotland and in the UK when they touch down in Glasgow and London, the 24th and the 31st of March, I believe. Around that time, there was also a wrestling, rock and horror convention being held, and one TNA champion, Mr. Joe Hendry, has been signed to appear at said convention, which just so happens to be around the weekend that they're appearing with Raw in Glasgow. There was a bit of a fuss online after the Royal Rumble about Cena and Hendry possibly having a match together at some point after Hendry had been known to have been praised by John Cena and having approached him for advice. Let's just put it out there. Let's see it. John Cena versus Joe Hendry at Raw in Glasgow. You're not telling me that's not main event written all over it. Would love that. I hope so. Be really good. Anyway, so Paul, seeing as me and Andy have chipped in, anything from you, or are you just having the night off tonight?
No.
all of the suspense and all of the build, and that's what we got. Anyway, no, seriously, thank you very much, both of you, for joining me, and thank you to you all for listening and watching along. If you're new here, welcome in. Thank you very much for sticking by, and hope you enjoyed what you've heard. Give us a subscribe and a little like, please. Would be nice. Doesn't cost you anything. Lovely stuff. Check out the other stuff that CookieCast has got to offer as well. All sorts of stuff floating your boat, whether it's football, whether it's Andy's Darkest Timeline, whether it's the F1 podcast, Straight to the Apex. Check out, see what we've got. And all being well, we shall see you next time when it will be time. It'll be time for WrestleMania predictions. It will be no doubt a double header, no doubt one of the biggest podcasts that getting overdue of the entire year. But yeah, it's almost WrestleMania time. But for now, enjoy Elimination Chamber, and we will see you then.
So there we go. What do you think to that? Who do you think is going to win? Who's your pick? Who's your selection? What do you reckon is going to happen? Is this a good premium live event for you, or maybe not so much? What are your thoughts? Why don't you let us know? You can, join us here at the CookieCast by liking, sharing, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. Leave a review. But if you want to be in with a chance to win some fantastic wrestling merchandise, all you have to do is jump over to the website, thecookiecast.com, click that email button and say, hey, these are my predictions. Number 1, you send us your predictions, you get a prize, a wrestling-related prize, done. If you beat us, you get a mega prize. Mega. Just something to think about. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, thank you for being here. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to this episode of CookieCast.